All right, this question kind of throws people off. I get why. It's a little weird. What our probably first instinct is here is just to solve using traditional algebra, and that's okay. I don't have any problem with that. It does throw people off a little bit, but let's take a look at what that would entail here. So I'm just going to take this equation, h equals negative 16t squared plus vt plus k. And our goal is to isolate v. And the answer choices make that really clear. So yeah, there's a whole story here, but it doesn't matter. We're rearranging a formula. That's it. So using the order of operations, the first thing that I would do is remove the other terms that are going to be added and subtracted from the v of t. So I'm going to move the k over and move the 16t squared over. And so that's going to involve, addition, subtraction as kind of opposites here. So minus k plus 16t squared. So let's rewrite. Now we have h minus k plus 16t squared is equal to v times t. Okay, and so now we have to remove the t from the v, and in order to do that, we're going to use division because it's attached to the v through multiplication. So division is the opposite of multiplication. Now, we could just write it like this, but if we look at our answer choices here, we can see that none of them quite look like this. Choice B kind of does, and I think that that's what most people end up picking because they kind of just see that they look similar, but they're not the same because on the top, we're supposed to have a t squared, but it's just a regular old 16, so something's different. Another way, though, to think about division, I think it's really helpful here, is that it actually behaves like multiplication. So when we're dividing stuff, multiple terms by the same number, we would break it apart. The same way that if we were multiplying a bunch of stuff by the same number and using distribution, we would, distribute and bring that term into multiple pieces. So here, kind of just looking at my answers and seeing what's going on here, it makes sense to try to think about how the t is going to apply to that 16t squared term. So instead of dividing it the way I did, I can kind of break it up and say, okay, this is mathematically the same as doing this, right? The point is we're distributing the t. We're dividing every single term by t. And for whatever reason, they decided to keep the h and the k together, so I'm going to do the same. But the 16t squared, they separated out. And now, because I have t squared on top and t on the bottom, I can divide those and simplify that, right? Because t squared, that's two t's, that's t times t, and one of those t's can cancel out with the one on the bottom. So let's just simplify everything. Now we have h minus k over t plus 16t is equal to v, and that is choice D, and that's the answer. But I get why that's weird. And there's two things that could have happened here. Either A, you started using algebra and you kind of got stuck because the answer you expected wasn't there, and so you didn't really know what to do, and you maybe had to guess at the end. That's not good. Or B, you kind of looked at this and were like, oh, there's too much algebra. I can't handle this from the start. And in either case, you do have kind of a backdoor SAT strategy way of dealing with this, right? We can arithmetize. It's very clear from this question that the letters themselves don't matter, right? We're never asked to solve for V. We're never asked to solve for T. These letters are placeholders. They carry through the question. So what I can do is I can replace the placeholders with numbers and just kind of see what happens. And especially with the calculator, this is doable even though there's so many numbers. So let me show you how I would do this in the most efficient way. So I would look at this equation and say, okay, based on the equation and the answer choices, it seems like the big kind of important number here is the t. Okay, it seems to be playing all sorts of different roles, and I really want to be able to see how things work with this t. So normally, when I pick values for my letters, I try to stick to lazy numbers like zeros and ones. In this case, I'm going to specifically say that t is equal to 2, so that I can kind of see more about how it functions. I want it to change my value. I want it to have an impact. And so if I make 0 or 1, that kind of diminishes the impact and probably doesn't help me. It might just mean that multiple answer choices are correct. So I pick t as 2. to keep things a little simple, I'm going to make v equal to 1, so I'm going to be a little lazy. And then I'm going to just pick something kind of crazy for k. I'm just going to make it 10, so it's just kind of way out there. Now what I have to do is say, well, I can put those numbers in and get myself a value for h. So I'm randomly picking numbers for v, t, and k. But because I have an equation, that equation must be true based on my value. So I can't randomly pick a number for h. My number of h has been predetermined by these values for v, t, and k. So let's just solve. H is going to be negative 16, t I said was 2 squared, plus v is 1, t is 2, k is 10. So I'm going to kind of go up here. That's going to be h is equal to negative 16 times 4. See, why am I doing that in my head? Negative 16 times 4 is negative 64. 1 times 2 is 2, and 10 is 10. So plus 2 plus 10, and we get that h is equal to negative 52. So that's also part of this set of numbers here. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. And this is, again, this is not ideal. I would prefer to have solved this with algebra, but I also would prefer to solve it than not solve it. So that's why arithmetize can be helpful, is it gives us this other way if we get stuck. So now what do? Now I'm going to go to all my choices, and I'm going to plug in those same numbers. And I'm going to see, okay, do I produce a valid equation? So because v is supposed to be 1, that's what I had said originally, all of these equations are supposed to equal 1. So just start at the beginning. So a would be, h I said was negative 52, k is 10, and t is 2. So that's going to be negative 52 plus 10 minus 32. And I can kind of just look at it and know, but I'm going to add it up anyway because I have a calculator. That gives me negative 74, which is wrong because it's supposed to give me 1. So that's about how I know that A is wrong. Let's keep moving. H, I said was negative 52 minus 10 plus 16 over 2. So negative 52 plus 10 minus 32, plus 16. Sorry, I'm looking in the wrong place. See, this is why I show you work. Plus 16 is negative 26 divided by 2 is negative 13. So that's wrong as well. It's supposed to be 1. Choice C. H is negative 52 plus 10 divided by 2 minus 16 divided by, or times 2. Negative 52 plus 10 is negative 42 divided by 2 is negative 21 minus 32. I can see that this is wrong because it gives me negative 53. And we know D is the answer, but, you know, let's just prove it here. H is negative 52 minus K is 10 divided by 2 plus 16 times 2. Negative 52 minus 10 is negative 62 divided by 2 is negative 31. 16 times 2 is 32. Negative 31 plus 32 is positive 1. That's what V was. That's what it was supposed to be. That's how I know that D is right. Yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. And it's not ideal, like I said. But your goal, if you're struggling with the math section, you know, if you're in the 500s or trying to get in those 6s, your goal is to get something like this right. This is number 13. It's medium difficulty, but it's also something that, you know, is going to be easier than the hard one. So this is a place where you don't want to lose points. And so you have to find ways of pushing through your confusion or dealing with obstacles. And the SAT strategies really open up some doors for us and let us get questions right with perseverance that we wouldn't get right otherwise. So if you see just like a lot of variables, you want to try your best to move away from algebra and back towards arithmetic. And when you have the calculator, it really doesn't matter how complicated that arithmetic is because the calculator can do it for you. So you got to stay organized and keep track of your numbers, but ultimately you can force yourself to get these points, and they're well earned, and it's, you know, going to improve your score in the long run because you're focusing on the right kinds of questions.